If you're sitting in a house full of clutter and starting to feel the impacts on your mental health, you're not wrong. And I want to talk through some of the ways that mental health and clutter are related. Hey, I'm Sophie and this is Sophisticated Organization. If you are new here, I chat about all things organization, productivity, do a lot of videos where I take you around with me, as well as some of these videos where I talk through different tips and tricks around productivity and organization. If you aren't subscribed, I would love if you click that subscribe button below before we jump right into the impact of clutter on mental health. And like I said, it is kind of a cyclical relationship between both mental health and clutter. It's a little bit of a chicken and the egg situation. Does mental health issues cause you to have clutter, or does the clutter cause mental health issues? It's a little bit of both. Mental strain and stress can cause you to build an excess of clutter in your home. When you're dealing with mental health issues, there's other things pulling your focus. There's just less attention to upkeep, and our homes aren't necessarily our priority. And I always think your mental health should come first, and you should have focus on your mental health and making sure that you are feeling good. But when you are in a tough mental place, it's important to understand that those feelings of guilt and fear and anything else can really hold you back from getting rid of that clutter. If you've heard the term depression room, it's become pretty popular on places like TikTok and Instagram and YouTube. And it's basically just an room in your house that you have let completely go due to your depression. A lot of times depression does have a physical response in your body where it's even difficult to get out of bed, let alone clean up your room, make your bed in the morning, put things away. The New York Times actually wrote a really interesting article and discussed the depression room, which I will link in the description box below. And I will link a few other articles or studies that I mention or resources that are helpful if you want to learn more about this. And some people may say, I love having a little bit of a cluttered space. It helps breed creativity. And sometimes that may be true, but frankly, I don't think so. I think there are plenty more negatives on our mental health when it comes to clutter than there are positives. So let's jump into the impacts of clutter on our mental health. The first one is mess equals stress. There are so many studies out there and evidence-based research that mess equates to stress, and stress equals an increase in cortisol levels. So if you don't know, cortisol is commonly referred to as the stress hormone, and when you have an excess of cortisol, it can lead to a variety of health problems, whether it be mental health or physical health. It can cause things like weight gain, fatigue, hypertension, osteoporosis, diabetes, acne, so many different things. So you do not want to have an excess of cortisol in your system. It can actually lead to structural changes in your brain, which will make you more sensitive to stress in the long term. An interesting study from UCLA, they studied 32 different middle-class families and found that mothers' stress hormone, the cortisol levels, spiked when they were dealing with their family's personal belongings, the physical things in their home. That is when their cortisol levels were the highest. They were doing saliva swabs. So there's actual physical scientific evidence to the fact that physical clutter in our homes increases our cortisol levels. Clutter can also lead to low self-worth and depression. A study from the Journal of Environmental Psychology called The Dark Side of the Home showed the link between self-perception and the appearance of our homes. It showed that clutter had a negative impact on the subjective well-being of the participants. That basically means that how we perceive ourselves is worse when we live in a space that's messy and filled with clutter. And when you have low self-worth, not only do you feel like you've lost control, but it can lead to embarrassment and isolation. If you think about having a messy home and potentially wanting to invite friends or family over to your home, if you are embarrassed of your space, you're much less likely to do that, and you may start to isolate yourself without even being aware of it. The next thing is that clutter can make it extremely difficult to focus. That is no surprise. Research backs this, and it's especially tough if you have ADHD. Another study by Princeton showed that clutter competes for your brain's resources, preventing focus and limiting processing power. If you've ever heard the term scatterbrained, that's exactly what I'm talking about here. It is pulling your attention and focus in so many different ways and limiting your productivity. That increase in stimuli will lead to cognitive overload and decision fatigue. When you live in a more clean and minimal space, there's less decisions that you have to make throughout the day, as opposed to living in a very messy space. You're constantly thinking about where to find something in your home, how to get through a certain space. It is just mental overload, and like that study showed, it makes it much more difficult to focus on the task at hand. Somewhat related is that it can increase memory issues, especially your working memory. Your brain can only process and remember so many things at a given time, so it can get overloaded and can't process all of the things that it's trying to remember. If you think of the phrase, a home for everything and everything in its home, that helps me think about this. If everything has a home in your house and every item is in that specific home, you don't have to remember, where did I put my keys? Where did I put my jacket? I was going upstairs for something, but what was it? Because I got distracted by 15 other things that I saw on my way up the stairs. Again, you can see how this clutter really weighs down on us mentally in all of these different ways. And I say all of this because I really want to open up this topic. And if you are interested in getting a grip on your home, if you're listening to this and you're thinking, I have so many of these issues and it's probably because of the clutter in my home, please subscribe to my channel. I love sharing tips on how to declutter. Every year I do something called the Sophisticated Declutter, where we go through our entire homes and declutter our space room by room together. You can always follow me on Instagram. I am sharing decluttering content over there as well as organizing content. But that is it for today's video. I hope that you enjoyed this conversation, but until next time, I will see you all later.